Are you in a funk? Are your children talking about feeling depressed? Welcome to episode 7 of the Be Conscious podcast.
Welcome to the Be Conscious podcast, the show that brings you enlightened perspectives on the frequency of money, life's many challenges, and those heavy feelings that may be holding you back from living your best life. And now your host, Dr. Susan Nicholas.
My 11-year-old son has been talking about feeling depressed. When our kids feel depressed, sometimes as parents, we think, what's there to be sad about? Maybe we feel that all of our child's needs are met. They have good friends, go to a good school. They are wanted, they're loved, they're supported. And so we can sometimes wonder, what is there to be sad about? Well, there's a couple things that I want to talk about here. The first is, when our kids are fully supported, there can sometimes be what I call a carryover, that they came into this life, this existence, not only with their genes from their ancestors, but maybe the energy from past generations. And there might be something that the child brings into this life that they're meant to overcome. I think we all do in some way. We have something that we are here to do on a spiritual level. And that comes with us in our little tiny child package, in our little baby package. We're already carrying it. And so despite all of our worldly needs being met, despite having all the love, our child can still feel sad or depressed or have emotional challenges. What about now, about all the stresses that we're feeling as parents? Can you imagine that our kids also experience the stresses of life? Maybe they're not exactly the same. Maybe they're not worried about paying the bills or putting the next meal on the table. Maybe they don't have the complexity of relationship stressors that we have as adults. But they have stressors nonetheless. Some of our children are empathic. Like my son, he's very empathic and picks up on the feelings of other adults, of other people around him, or even the community at large, the society around them. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't always feel wanted or loved. Early in life, I grew up poor, and I didn't always feel that I had all my needs met, let alone the things that I wanted. And I remember feeling depressed as a teenager, and then at several other junctures throughout my young adult life. And before my awakening, I attributed those early feelings of sadness, of depression, came from times when I did experience abandonment, when I had insecurities of all sorts, not being good enough, lovable enough, not having enough. But my son, he has different types of stressors, not the ones that I had or his father had. And sometimes when our kids express sadness or depression, when they don't experience exactly what we experience as parents, as when we were children, like what our challenges were, we sometimes question it and will wonder what they have to feel sad about. Now, my son, he lost his paternal grandmother Christmas of 2019. And just last month, he lost his maternal grandma, just this past January. On New Year's Eve of 2021, my son and I were in a car accident. Now, we weren't injured. I hurt my finger and we were afraid. My car was nearly totaled, but we were okay. But my son, he embodied anxiety and fear around that. And when my mom passed away that same week and he had to fly into Pittsburgh, he had fears that maybe the plane was going to crash. Now, think about all the things that come with COVID. The feelings maybe of isolation, the loss of connections and the usual activities. Gosh, I remember my son having this very full social schedule with birthday parties and camps and school activities. It was just something going every weekend, just so much fun that the kids were having. But now all that's pretty much gone. And what about the anxieties and fears about being ill, about losing more people in their lives? So my son has expressed this fear of me dying or his father dying. And as a parent, we might think, well, he just experienced the loss of two grandparents in the course of about 12 months. But I think what concerned me and his father was that he started speaking about suicide. And not that he wanted to commit suicide in a sense, but that the reason that he wouldn't was because he wouldn't want his father and I to find him dead in his room. And just the fact that he thought about that was concerning for us, that's even a thought that he has. I think that there is a lot going on. And just like adults, how we need time to process. And we are grieving so much. I believe we are in a period of grieving on the planet, of deep bereavement, of grieving, all of us. And I think our kids, they need time to process too. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, let's discuss some helpful tips to help you and your children overcome these bouts of sadness and how to process this grief.
Like what you're hearing so far, make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. How would you describe your relationship with money? Did you ever imagine that your deepest feelings and beliefs about money could be preventing you from acquiring all the wealth that you desire? Click the link below in the show notes to learn more about Dr. Nicholas's highly sought-after Frequency of Money program to positively transform your relationship with money. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
I want to start off by saying that it's natural to feel sad at times. Just earlier this week, I was on a Zoom call with this very upbeat person who was telling little jokes and having fun. But I found myself, I just couldn't rise to the occasion. It was just hard for me to match that energy. And it was at that moment that I realized that I too am still in the process of grieving the loss of my mother, of processing this year, of raising up a company and the stressors that come with entrepreneurship. Being around a cheerful person, I started to judge myself for not being cheerful. And, I actually started to feel bad for not feeling good, for not feeling happy enough. What I would say to that was, don't do that to yourself. We are allowed to grieve. We are allowed to feel fear. We're allowed to have anxiety. Of course, we don't want to be there into perpetuity. We want to be able to come out of those states. But when we are in them, those are feelings within us, and I believe our feelings are meant to be felt. That we cannot just ignore them or just pretend or just be happy when we are not. We cannot fake that. And this social media stuff, when everybody's posting these filtered pictures of these experiences of themselves in this state of perpetual bliss, I think when our children see that repeatedly, it gives this impression that everybody's feeling better, doing better, looking better than you are. And then that same feeling of judgment comes that something must be wrong with me because I don't look that way, feel that way, I'm not having that experience. But every single being on the planet has the capacity to feel the whole spectrum of emotion. I mean, we have them within us. We can have good days and bad days. We can look great one day and not feel great the next. But what's on social media is just the good stuff. Like people post and write stuff, and only when it's the good day or the good time. They're not necessarily posting when they don't feel so great. I think about kind of like my website. I did a photo shoot for it. And I think a lot of people do that for media and whatnot. They get all done up and dolled up and they dress up. And then there's a static image, and it appears that person is perpetually like in that state. But we are not. That's false in a sense. That's not what we're like all the time. That's a photo shoot, or that's a certain event. And that's why we're all dressed up like that and why we may look a certain way. So I just want to say, allow yourself to grieve, to feel what your feelings are, and allow yourself to grieve to completion. Feel through your emotions. This is all about feeling. This whole life, this whole world, it's all about feeling. And this idea of living is really, we want to feel love and compassion. We want to resonate from our heart this feeling of love and compassion for all of humanity. But we're not always feeling in that. And when we aren't, the way that we can raise our vibration, our feelings, I think we can do a few things. One of these things that my son really liked, he said, "Mommy, the breathing exercise that you taught me really helps me." And what I teach my son is when he feels anxious or when he doesn't feel great or he's frustrated or stuck in some situation, to just go back to his breath, to focus on his breath, breathing in and out. And then I remind him, like I do all of my energy clients and whatnot, that when you're focusing on your breath, it helps to say 2 words so that narrows your thoughts down to just those 2 words. Because sometimes our mind is running a racket when we have anxiety and fears. So I just say in and out. And in my mind, I'll say those 2 words in coordination with my breath. And you choose your 2 words. I like in, out, or 1, 2. Or humdrum, whatever you want. Just pick 2 words so you narrow your thoughts down to 2 words in coordination with your breath. Some people, also like to put their hand on their heart or a pulse point and focus on that. And that's fine too. Whatever it is for you that brings you down to just some of that basic feeling of breathing, of your heart beating. And, I told my son, who does he feel comfortable talking to? Name 2, 3, 4, 5 people, as many people that you feel comfortable talking to, and reach out to them. And then those people that are close to our children, the close ones, reach out to your child, but have go-to people, people that you can talk to, that you trust, that you love. And then we as parents, we need to talk to our children. And my son and I talked about this game plan on how to think happy thoughts. Because sometimes he'll go into these sad states and have these heavy thoughts that are hard to break through. And we talked about watching a comedy show to laugh, or those YouTube fails, things, those funniest videos. Sometimes we do a dance off and just goof around about whose moves are the best, and whatever it is, whatever little silly thing that you can do it. Just give it a whirl. Just give it a try. Tonight, we went to a restaurant and just went for some comfort food, kind of a place where we've had good memories and we love going to. So when you can go out or prepare a favorite meal, do that in times of grief and not feeling at your best. Sometimes that reminds you of the love. And we talk about exercising, about spending time in nature. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but go for a walk, get out, ride your bike, do something. Just spend time outside in nature, breathing the air, communing with nature. If you have a creative child, channel that into creativity, into art, into writing, to journaling. I also did an energy healing session with my son to help him to move some of that energy. And I did it before he went to bed as he was sleeping. And he woke up just feeling so much lighter and better and happier. So if there's an opportunity or a possibility or energy healer that you trust, I highly recommend it. I'm a healer myself, and I know that it works wonders, and know that energy transcends space and time, geography. So even in times of COVID, if you can find someone to do a healing session, reach out. It may prove to be extremely rewarding and worth it. And of course, there's also counseling if you need that or feel if you're open to that, or books, different books for references. So pick out a couple of things, 1, 2 things, all these things, to help you overcome those moments when you don't feel that pep in your step, and you don't have that kind of laughing and happiness for no reason type of feeling. Remember that it's okay, and to give yourself a break. Don't judge yourself, but don't get stuck there either. Don't dwell there too long, and find ways to help you out of those phases, not ignoring the feelings, not finding unhealthy coping mechanisms or like substance abuse and things like that, but find natural ways to break through those feelings and to help you through along the way. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Be Conscious podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Be Conscious podcast with author, TEDx international speaker, and conscious coach, Dr. Susan Nicholas. Be sure to connect with her to stay up to date with her latest news and works. Learn more about her conscious speaking platform at susannicholas.org/speaking. Stay tuned for the next thought-provoking episode. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious.